Welcome again, I'm John, and tonight you'll fall asleep to the secret thinking lives of animals, 100 quiet discoveries that help you relax and drift off a little wiser. Maybe today felt heavy, like it asked too much of you. Your mind's still busy, your body a little tight. That's okay, you're safe here. We'll go from dolphins naming friends with signature whistles to octopuses testing latches in the dark. But here's the quietly unsettling question we'll reveal later. Who are we without our words? If this gentle journey helps you unwind, you'd help me by subscribing, so every night we can share another nature nap. Now close your eyes, and let's begin. Evening water holds its breath, waves hush to long, slow sighs, and silverbacks roll through dusk like careful commas. You can almost feel the ocean thinking, the way it saves its strength between pulses, the way it keeps a rhythm older than speech. Out there, a pod gathers and separates, each glide a patient decision wrapped in light. A thin whistle threads the air, not random, not merely pretty. It carries a contour as personal as handwriting, a shape that belongs to one animal like a face. Dolphins use these signature whistles as names, reliable tags that survive months, storms and migrations. The meaning is simple and astonishing. In a place without letters, identity still travels. Listen again. Softer. The same contour returns from a companion, a mirror call answering across distance. Names bounce on the water like small lanterns, finding their owners even when sight fails. In this gentle exchange, social life holds steady. Order is woven from sound, and the pod can relax into a shared map of who is who. Near the calf, a mother repeats a curved phrase, patient and precise. Teaching takes time here, not seconds but months of shaped breath. She shows her baby how the name rises, where it dips, how long the tail should linger. The calf tries and fumbles, tries and improves, practicing identity until it fits like skin. Learning a name becomes the first craft, the original tool. There is comfort in the repetition. The mother does not rush. She circles, touches and tries again, because memory grows slowly like kelp. By returning to the same intonation, she inscribes belonging into the calf's nervous system. A lullaby becomes a lesson, and a lesson becomes safety. If you can call me, I can find you. Years pass in a heartbeat you cannot hear. Another whistle arrives from a voice not heard since younger water, and heads turn. Dolphins can remember the voices of old companions for astonishing spans, perhaps decades in some cases, tracking timber and pattern long after separation. The ocean is large, but memory stretches larger, tying scattered lives back into a story. What does it mean to recall a voice so clearly after seasons of change? It means the social web persists beyond sight, threaded by patient recall. Distance loses teeth. The mind carries a harbor inside itself, and the harbor answers when called. In that quiet, trust can travel farther than bodies, and reunion becomes a kind of gentle proof. Now the tide turns, and the pod shifts gears with a shared idea. Bubbles unspool in layered curtains, a slow ballooning wall that thickens and folds. Fish hesitate, then compress into a trembling cloud, and the dolphins read the moment with calm attention. Their bubble net hunting changes shape as prey behavior changes, adjusting circles, gaps and timing by feel. One turn is wider tonight, another is tight and sudden. They test, watch and revise, like chefs tasting broth, like carpenters shaving wood. No central commander shouts. Coordination happens in looks and spacing, in the timing of a surge. Strategy is not brittle here. It bends, and bending wins. A young calf peels off, then darts back with a burst of foam. It chases a fleeing fish, loses it, and loops the maneuver again, slightly altered. This is play, but not aimless. Calves practice problem solving in these games, rehearsing split-second choices without the cost of failure. The body learns possibilities, the mind learns patience. Play has edges smoothed by laughter like squeaks, but within those edges are real trials. A calf tests how closely it can flank a larger companion, how sharply it can pivot under pressure. Each retry lifts a detail from chaos, the angle, the pace, the breathing cadence that keeps panic small. Group strategies improve because the parts practice privately. The pod regathers, satisfied. Silver eyes half close, the moon lifts. In the gentle slack between hunts, names soften to murmurs, and the ocean shows another kind of intelligence, the wisdom to rest. Muscles float, memory keeps watch, identity continues humming like a low star, the same light, kindly repeated. You can drift with them if you like. Imagine the water supporting everything that feels heavy, holding it without complaint. Imagine being called by a sound that understands you, the effortless feeling of turning towards your name. Somewhere a distant whistle answers, clean and steady, and you know you are part of a pattern. The calf sleeps in brief, trusting episodes, pressed to the mother's wake. Teaching pauses, but learning continues, settling from surface to depth. Tomorrow, the name will be there again, ready to be shaped, ready to be sung. Tomorrow, the bubbles will settle into useful rings, and play will sharpen the edges of understanding. Even the way the pod drifts is a decision, not hurried, not careless. The sea asks for patience, and patience answers with clarity. Calls pass between companions like warm stones passed hand to hand. The mind here is not a box but a chorus, each voice distinct, all voices supportive. A night fish flickers, then disappears behind a breath-smoke wall of bubbles. A fin brushes another in acknowledgement, brief and honest. There is no speech the way we know it, yet meaning travels, makes plans, revises them, and rests. Intelligence is not noise, it is the soft alignment of many small choices. Somewhere below, the calf attempts its name in a dream. The contour wavers, then steadies, the final rise lands almost right. Progress is quiet at night, but it is progress nonetheless. A mother will hear it tomorrow, and smile in her way, circling once, then twice, before answering with the true shape. Drift a little more. The ocean keeps repeating itself, and repetition can be peace. In the ebb, every bubble remembers its path, and every whistle knows where to go. The pod moves as one mind made of many bodies, adjusting, recalling, and practicing through the blue. If play can teach patience, and names can bridge years, then planning becomes a kind of tenderness. The world simplifies, and in that simplicity, thinking feels like breathing. Let the breath be slow now. Let the water be kind. If learning starts in playful practice, what gently begins foresight. Night settles on the grove with a patient hush, and black feathers drink the last light. A branch creaks, then stills, as if listening to its own thin memory. Somewhere above, a crow shifts weight, head tilted to catch a slender clue. The forest keeps its ideas, but tonight it lets us watch them move. A shard of wire glints in the leaf litter, nothing to a beak without patience. The crow draws it out, tests the stiffness, and eyes the small gap in bark. Inside rests a grub, sweet and unreachable, the kind that teaches persistence by resisting. With quick spare movements, the bird bends the wire into a gentle hook. Not luck, not chance, but a practiced tactic. Curve, test, insert, lift, and eat. This small invention blooms from a lineage of tinkering minds along wet valleys. New Caledonian crows have learned to fashion hooks that pull meals from crevices. The method varies with materials, twigs, leaves, bits of wire, even plastic. Each item becomes an extension of attention, a longer finger for careful worlds. Watching feels like opening a quiet door into problem solving, without a voice. Not far away, a jay tucks a seed into moss, and pats the spot shut. It glances around, not with guilt, but with the awareness of possible witnesses. Caching is more than storage, it is a small promise made to tomorrow. Jays remember where and when they hid food, returning when hunger and freshness align. Some even relocate caches after being watched, as if accounting for future theft. Under a low sky, a rook investigates a narrow glass cylinder half filled with water. A floating meal sits just beyond reach, bobbing with quiet provocation. The bird drops a pebble, then another, listening to the water rise against glass. Piece by piece, volume becomes access. The treat drifts upward into the open beak. It is patient arithmetic, a tactile lesson in cause and gentle effect. Ravens arrive like thoughts, dark and purposeful, testing air with their wedge-shaped wings. One bird tilts its head toward a carcass, then toward a nearby ally, then back. Gaze becomes a rope, attention becomes invitation, a subtle way to recruit help. With soft clicks and body angles, ravens coordinate access, balancing rivals and partners. No schedule is posted, yet a loose order emerges, maintained by memory and watching. On another day, a crow chick studies its parent cutting leaves into neat strips. The strip becomes a hook, the hook becomes breakfast, and the lesson sticks. Families pass down tool styles, the way villages pass down recipes, careful and proud. Youngsters imitate, fail, adjust, and finally master the local pattern of making. Culture here is quiet engineering, materials chosen, methods refined, traditions remembered. Tool use is not a trick, it is a way to make time behave. A hook shortens waiting, a cache stretches satiety, stones lift the future into reach. Each move says later matters, and later can be managed with patience and parts. In the hush, these choices feel like whispered blueprints for a calmer mind. Even the forest seems to exhale, relieved by competence that harms nothing. We expect intelligence to shout, yet here it barely raises its voice. A beak touches wire, and meaning blooms, a feather flutters, and strategy shifts. The quietness is persuasive, the way night persuades eyes to open wider. Small minds, we once thought. Small bodies, therefore small plans, therefore simple days. But plans multiply in the unlit hours, practicing themselves into something like wisdom. Watch a crow survey a crossroads, using passing cars as mechanical nutcrackers with timing. It places the nut, steps back, waits for the light, then walks out safely. This is not our planned fact tonight, only a cousin to it, a reminder. Understanding recruits the world as a partner, even when the world is busy. The bird bows slightly to traffic, then lifts with victory small as a smile. Back in the trees, jays arrange their pantry, choosing sites by shade and soil. Moist places keep seeds softer longer, dry ridges preserve hardness against rot. When winter leans in, they visit the map in memory, and hunger loosens. Sometimes they wait for a dawn that promises safety, as if forecasting risk, planning lives here without paperwork, quiet and precise as frost knitting a window. Ravens meanwhile weigh company. An ally today could become a rival tomorrow. Their gestures are not orders, only invitations, yet invitations can build a quorum. If danger approaches, eyes flash to one side, and bodies follow the line. Food shared now may be repaid later, interest earned in remembered favors. Social arithmetic hums underneath, steady as wing beats over cold morning air. At the edge of a field, a child drops a shiny cap near the fence. A crow lands, tests its weight, then carries it home like a small puzzle. The family gathers, passing the object, tapping, tearing, exploring edges with curiosity. Later, the cap becomes a spacer for a hook that fits a stubborn crevice. Next year, the chick repeats the trick, as tradition steps quietly into tomorrow. We sleep better knowing the wild can solve without harm, can plan without hurry. It suggests our own planning might be kinder, more patient with incomplete pieces. A wire bends, a stone drops, a seed waits, an eye invites help. These are modest gestures, but together they draw a map from problem to peace. The grove breathes out, and even the silence feels slightly more intelligent. If you listen closely, you can hear wood remember every careful touch. You can sense time stretching to meet skill, and skill answering with mercy. The birds finish their work and settle, feathers loosening like thoughts before sleep. Somewhere a jay marks one more cache, because morning will ask gentle questions. Somewhere a rook nudges a stone, remembering how water rises to meet patience. And somewhere, a crow chick dreams of a wire that bends just right. Tomorrow will bring another crevice, another chance to try, another quiet success. If a feather can plan ahead, perhaps our worries can soften into choices. If a glance can gather help, perhaps our days can lean toward kindness. If a beak can imagine later, what shape will our tomorrow take? Heat loosens its grip on the plain, and evening comes on like a long exhale. Dust lowers, gold turns to ash blue, and the old matriarch stands very still, as if listening with her whole body. She knows the shape of thirsty seasons. She has carried her family through calendars that cracked and curled. Somewhere beyond the horizon, a shallow pan holds a thin skin of water, masked by brittle reeds and a fringe of thorn. She turns, tilts her head, and steps toward it without ceremony. Memory is quiet like that. No drum roll, just direction. Footsteps fall into a rhythm older than any path cut this year. The young walk inside the wake of larger legs, copying pace and spacing, collecting information with soles and trunks. Wind shifts and brings a whiff of mud, ears spread wider, catching faint hints. In drought years, matriarchs recall distant water that younger minds do not yet suspect. The knowledge is not in a book, it is in the body, laid down by experience that took time the way trees take rain. The herd follows this living archive, and the plane softens from worry into movement. They pass a scattering of pale shapes half sunk in grass, ribs like small gates, a curve of jaw, a near circle of weathered ivory. The pace slows, trunks reach, pause and trace edges with patient haptics. Elephants greet old bones with careful repeated touches, lingering at tusk and skull as if reading names. Calves imitate, learning a respectful curiosity that never quickens into fear. We do not need to guess feelings to honor the pattern, the return, the hush, the tactile attention. Memory here is not only for water, it is also for lives that once walked beside them. A calf tests the air and presses its trunk tip to the hollow of a cheekbone, the way a child might nestle a palm into a parent's handprint left in clay. The adults do not hurry. Around them, night spreads its soft grammar, and somewhere in the nearby brush, a nightjar clears its throat once. After a long minute, the matriarch withdraws her trunk, gives a low breath, and moves on. The herd follows, but more quietly now, as if the bones have reminded them that passage is both necessary and fleeting. Voices drift from a far track, human syllables carried in strips by the wind. The matriarch's head lifts, the vowels wear a certain edge, the cadence an adult male's. Elephants can distinguish many human languages and speaker types by tone and pattern, responding with caution to those historically risky to them, relaxing more to others. Nothing in the sound names a threat, not exactly. Still, the herd adjusts, giving that breeze a little more space and choosing a line that sidesteps memory's sharper pages. Knowledge here is situational, shaded by history. It keeps families whole. They regroup within a stand of acacia, their shadows braided with thorns. A tremor blooms in the matriarch's chest, too low for our easy hearing. It is a sentence pressed into air and ground, a message that can travel far. We are moving. Water lies this way. The night is safe enough for small feet. These low rumbles ride through soil and open air, slipping under noise and over distance. Map sharing without maps. A relative, still far off, may lift a head at that vibration, orient and begin to angle toward reunion. The plane is not empty. It is crisscrossed with these invisible threads. Another reply arrives, so soft that it feels imagined, and yet the herd adjusts once more, as if the land itself had sent directions. Calves step between legs, learning pace from the bodies they trust. They learn routes by walking matriarch paths, translating landmarks, termite towers, tilted palms, a rock shaped like a sleeping hippo into a personal atlas. Safe corridors are not announced, they are walked again, and then walked in the minds of the young while they rest, the way a lullaby repeats until it becomes part of breath. The pan reveals itself only when night has fully taken shape. Reeds sigh, frogs click like damp metronomes. The matriarch tests the rim, sinking one foot to check for false ground, then steps in with care that reads a ceremony. Water accepts the weight and holds. One by one the family drinks in soft turns, no rush, each mouth a brief dark lake surrounding a trunk. Thirst backs away, shoulders release. You can feel intelligence here as restraint, the choosing of order so that everyone drinks enough and no one startles the darkness into breaking. Nearby, a calf plays at the edge, learning how far is far and how deep is deep. It imitates the mother's foot check, pressing into mud, then withdrawing with a sticky sound that seems funny enough to repeat. Practice smooths into skill, where to step, how to lean, what to test before committing weight. Tomorrow, the same calf will walk this route with less doubt, the path settling into an inner place that does not need a signpost. This is how knowledge ripens without a lecture. It is walked into being. An owl swings past like a polite question, and the matriarch answers with stillness. Another tremor rolls outward, slower than water, steadier than wind. Somewhere in the distance, a related herd hears the call and adjusts course by degrees, trusting that the sender does not squander their attention. Information blooms as care. Come when you can, keep to the cool ground, skirt the patch where thorns thicken. Nothing dramatic, just the quiet precision of guidance given by one who remembers when guidance failed. They drink until they are no longer thinking of drinking. Then they stand in a loose circle, dusting themselves with small clouds that drift and settle like sleep. The bones they touched earlier remain in the mind, not heavy, only present, a comma in a sentence that continues. The human voices on the wind have shifted key, softer, younger. The matriarch dismisses them, the way a parent dismisses a distant radio. Risk is not gone, but it is understood, which is another kind of peace. When they leave a road you cannot see unless you know how to look. Faint depressions, a curl of grass, the memory of wide feet. Calves will place their steps inside those ovals for weeks, each repetition pressing the lesson down until it holds on its own. The plane gathers these traces and keeps them until rain decides to edit. Even then, the herd carries the route forward, and the mud cannot erase what has been walked into nerve and habit. The night grows thinner, stars fade at the edges. They move with purpose that needs no speed. Somewhere ahead, the matriarch stores a fork in the path that will matter in a month when the wind comes from the other side. She does not explain this. Explanation is not the medium here. Presence is, repetition is. The long mercy of having someone older who knows. The youngest stumbles once, then recovers, nudged by a gentle hip. A trunk rests for a moment on a small back, not possessive, only encouraging. The family is a moving memory, each body a page annotated by touch, smell, rhythm. Intelligence looks like many things, but tonight it looks like this: remembering water when it hides, pausing for bones when they appear, telling distance with the belly's whisper, and teaching by walking until the ground itself can answer. Quiet question: if footsteps can carry a family's memory, what happens when hands begin to teach by imitation? Dusk settles into the canopy like a quiet hand smoothing cloth. Leaves cool, insects turn their tiny gears, and somewhere near a clay mound, a chimpanzee listens to earth breath. He kneels with the focus of a careful craftsperson, sorting twigs by thickness, length, and give. One becomes a perforator, one a probe, and one a brush, each trimmed with teeth to fit a purpose. He opens the mound with patience, slips the probe into darkness, and waits for the faint tremor that signals success. Termites cling like pepper to the slender stick. He withdraws, sweeps them onto the brush, and eats without rush. Then he repeats the sequence, small movements nested like soft boxes. Here is insight as choreography, not one tool but several, used in order, with evaluation between steps. The sequence is learned, remembered, modified, and taught through quiet observation. The mind selects, combines, and corrects, turning chance into a routine that feeds the day. Two juveniles sit nearby, mimicking without fuss. One copies the exact flick of his wrist, tapping the mound where he tapped, tapping again when nothing happens. The other leans into outcome more than gesture, choosing a slightly stiffer twig, testing pressure against the soil until the tunnel opens. Both try. One learns a flourish, the other learns the goal. Across an hour, their attempts converge toward what works. You can hear attention thickening, as if the air itself wished to help. The adult shifts positions, adjusting for a deeper chamber. He pauses to rethink the order. Perforator first, then probe, then brush, or perhaps the brush alone will do now that the passage is set. This is not wandering. It is a real-time revision based on feedback, made calm by experience, made accurate by many small failures he survived yesterday. A rhythm forms. Test, feel, decide. Test, feel, decide. Hunger fades into the pure satisfaction of getting it right. Wind presses the leaves, and far above, a long-armed silhouette glides along a lattice of branches. An orangutan settles near a thorny cluster, gathers fresh leaves, and folds them into a thick pad with tidy hands. Leaf gloves bloom green against dusk-brown fingers, simple mitts that keep needles from biting skin. He reaches for a spined branch, grips, and moves it aside with steady care. The forest opens a step, and a root appears where a barrier had stood. He keeps the gloves as he climbs, using them again when he meets a rough bark crossing polished by rain. Sometimes he crumples the leaves and replaces them with newer, cooler pads, tailoring comfort with minute attention. A young one watches, mirrors the folding, fumbles the grip, and learns the feel of adequate thickness. The lesson lands without speech. Problems can be softened, pain can be reduced by crafted distance. The mind is allowed to proceed because the body is protected. On the ground, twilight deepens into a slow river. A lowland gorilla approaches a broad, shallow pool that remembers last week's storm. He stops before the waterline and pulls a fallen stalk into his hands. The stalk becomes a measuring line. He sets it into the surface and pushes until mud resists, reading depth by angle and pressure. He steps only where the stick has told him to step, each placement careful, each ripple judged as friend or caution. Behind him, younger eyes mark the pause before commitment. They mark the patient testing, the refusal to be hurried by thirst or proximity. The water accepts them in order. They cross without panic, and reach tender greens without a splash that wastes trust. Intelligence here is a lullaby of restraint. It says wait, then move, then wait again, because safety lengthens every other choice. Night comes fully now, a low comfort of crickets, a distant thump of fruit. The chimpanzee finishes and wipes his hands on bark. A juvenile tries a different stick, shorter and slightly curved, and finds the tunnel easier to enter. He keeps the improvement and loses the flourish, discarding the adult's tap that never mattered. Apes imitate selectively, copying goals more than motions when those motions are not needed. Efficiency rises, and with it, a mood like gratitude. In another valley, a separate troop lives among similar mounds and similar trees, yet their methods feel distinct, a language of doing that differs by region. One group favors long wands for ant dipping, another uses shorter twigs with bristled tips, a third neglects termites altogether and spends evenings cracking nuts with stones by a river. Traditions vary between groups despite the same forest pressing close on all sides. Culture is not only what is possible, it is what a community maintains. A mother peels leaves with an absent grace, binding them into a glove for her daughter's tiny hand. They move along a thorned corridor that would delay a careless climber. The glove turns scratch into contact that can be ignored. Below, distant cousins splash hard into water without a test. Their elders never probed with sticks, and so impatience echoes and repeats. Habits persist not by decree, but by demonstration watched at the right age, on the right evening, when the mind is ready to borrow. The chimp with the tools places the unused probe across his feet, as if saving a bookmark in a book without pages. He scans for nearby watchers, protective of his advantage but not immune to charity. When he leaves, he abandons the perforator upright in the mound. A younger animal finds it later and understands, reenacting the sequence by inference. Teaching happens by leaving the world altered in interpretable ways. You could call that kindness, you could also call it design. An orangutan reshapes a fresh leaf pad and adds a second layer. The double glove is overkill for this branch, but he keeps it on anyway, because comfort can be a reason beyond necessity. The juvenile mimics the padding exactly and slips. Later she revises, switching to one layer on easier sections. She has learned what to copy and what to ignore, and her body thanks her by descending without a scrape. The forest watches and hums its approval in cricket time. The gorilla returns along the same route, turning the measuring stalk into a walking staff for one brief, satisfied minute. He drops it at the bank, and the water returns to its first face. The young touch the stalk and smile in their quiet way, as if greeting an ally. Tomorrow the pool will be smaller, and tomorrow they will test anyway, because patience is practice, not prophecy. The mind rests easiest when it confirms what it hopes to trust. Somewhere nearby, a chimp cracks a nut with a river stone and sings a small mouth sound that belongs only to that cluster of trees. Across a ridge, a cousin troop never learned the stone song. They whistle differently, their evenings framed by another craft. Between them lies green distance and the tender fact of separate histories. Intelligence becomes local, textured by elders, revised by youth, and held together by the soft glue of imitation that chooses. The night thins, the mound cools, the glove wilts, the stick dries with a faint green scent you can almost taste. Work is finished, but learning continues in the muscles, held like warmth after firelight. The forest is not a school, yet everything teaches at the right pace. Tool sequences, leaf gloves, probing sticks, selective copying, and traditions that differ by valley. All these are small doors into the same quiet house. Sleep comes easier when competence has been witnessed. The air feels trustworthy. The ground returns answers. The branch offers a gentle padded grip. What remains is a question that moves like an unseen animal through leaves. If a goal can pass from hand to hand without words, what begins to rise in the throat when ideas want names? A hush spreads through the aviary trees, soft as silk catching on branches. Feathers shift in fading light, emerald and sapphire, holding the last warmth of the sun. Among them, a parrot tilts its head toward a familiar object, a red ball, and utters a word-shaped sound that holds steady. The label is not mimicry, it is a bridge. Some parrots map words to stable object categories, recalling them across days and distractions. When the ball rolls under a leaf, the sound still points toward it, like a small compass spoken into air. Nearby, another parrot raises its voice with more precision. Green key, it seems to say, a phrase formed not from rote but from careful combination, a specific color, a specific shape, a vocabulary stitched together into a usable request. Parrots can ask for items by joining labels for hue and contour, showing that words are not only for echoing, but also for pointing with intention. In that clarity lives intelligence, bright but not hurried, as if language had grown feathers. In the flock, calls overlap and ripple like overlapping rivers. But listen longer, and you hear the subtle art underneath. Young parrots learn calls by social mirroring, shaping their voices until they blend into the dialect of their companions. Over time, individuals refine these shared notes, polishing them like stones rubbed together. A single call can mark belonging, link individuals into a community, and ease quarrels before they take shape. Even among wings, culture has accents. Sometimes a parrot chooses to invent instead of inherit. One bird begins to shape a peculiar rising chirrup that no other uses. It reserves the sound for a particular human, like a pet name carved from the throat. These invented contact calls are born of creativity, not necessity, proof that companionship can sculpt entirely new syllables. To be known in this way is to be carried into another's mind, given a place in their soundscape, as real as any perch. Even play carries the weight of learning. Two parrots toss a wooden bead back and forth, repeating small phrases as they catch and drop. The rhythm of the game cements the rhythm of the words. Scientists watching note that playful sessions strengthen memory for new labels, the joy itself becoming adhesive. What might fade in isolation becomes durable when laughter, wings and repetition hold it in place. A red feather flutters loose, twirling through air before settling onto soil. One bird notices, picks it up, and chirps a familiar phrase, testing whether the others will answer. They do, not with perfect matches, but with approximations close enough to carry the meaning forward. Language here is not about correctness, it is about connection, and in that flexibility lies resilience. The trees darken further, and parrots begin to roost. Calls soften into muttered syllables, like children repeating new words before sleep. A green bird shifts, repeating its unique phrase for its favorite companion, a last good night in private code. Another murmurs red ball. One final time, as though labeling the world even in darkness helps hold it steady. The night absorbs their voices, but memory keeps them safe until dawn. Intelligence rests lightly here, not pressed into paper, but breathed into branches. Words point, phrases request, calls belong, inventions create and play cements, all gentle evidence that meaning can exist wherever repetition, attention and joy intersect. Listening feels like watching thought take flight, feathers shimmering with something both ancient and new. If names can be invented for love, what do we become when our own words outlast us? The tide has slipped back into itself, leaving behind rock pools that glitter like borrowed stars. Within one of them, an octopus curls low against the stone, mantle rising and falling in steady rhythm. Its eyes rimmed in gold track the strange glass jar placed nearby. Inside is a crab, pacing slow circles, safe for the moment. The octopus does not rush, instead it flows forward, unfurling an arm to trace the smooth edge, then retreats as if to let the thought ripen. Later, it returns. Another arm reaches, tasting with the soft touch of suckers. The lid resists, the octopus withdraws, then presses again, testing in increments. Unscrewing will take time, but time is not an enemy. After several tries, the jar loosens, and the crab becomes supper. What looks like persistence is also problem-solving, learning by repeated trials, each attempt remembering what the last one whispered. The lesson stays in the body. Next time, the lid will open quicker. Around the pool, tide spray flickers in moonlight. The octopus now turns its attention to a shell and a bottle cap, two unrelated shapes washed together by waves. It toys with one, then the other, holding them as if weighing their possibilities. Observers notice that individuals differ in how they approach these objects. Some are bold, rushing to manipulate. Others are cautious, circling, watching, then striking. These differences suggest something like personalities, curious fingerprints of mind, where we once expected only instinct. The caretaker arrives at dawn, footsteps soft against stone. The octopus glides close, its body shifting into the light brown it often shows when greeting. It stretches an arm toward the human, not in fear, but in recognition. Octopuses can tell familiar people apart by posture, scent, and the rhythm of movement. Some extend welcome, others remain shy, but the distinction is clear. Recognition means the mind stores a portrait of another being, even across the gap of species. Life here is brief, the candle of an octopus, burning only a handful of years, yet learning moves at a furious pace, as if time itself were urging efficiency. A single experience can be enough to alter behavior for good. One failed hunt teaches caution with certain prey. One successful strategy remains in the toolkit forever. In compressed lives, memory and adaptability become survival's sharpened edge. Every day is both a lesson and a test. The water folds darker now, yet 8 arms continue their sampling. Suckers press against stone, against shell, against drifting bits of seaweed. Each arm is partly independent, capable of deciding in small ways, while sending reports back to the central brain. The octopus lives in a body where intelligence is distributed, perception spread across limbs like a constellation instead of a single sun. To touch is to think, to hold is to know. The mantle waits, weighing signals, and then decides the next motion. One arm pauses at the jar again, remembering the lid. It twists slightly, as if rehearsing without the crab present. Another curls around the bottle cap, pulling it closer. To watch is to feel thought without words, a choreography of testing, failing, revising. The octopus does not complain, it only adjusts. An adjustment done again and again looks very much like reasoning. The tide fills back in, swallowing the pools until only ripples remain. Our watcher slips deeper, blending into a patch of coral. Its skin matches the surrounding rocks in an instant, a disguise so convincing that even eyes trained to see miss it. Camouflage here is not the fact we note tonight, but a cousin to it, a reminder that problem-solving sometimes begins with perception, with choosing to vanish so one can try again tomorrow. Inside its den, the octopus arranges small treasures, shells, stones, even fragments of glass. To some these are defenses, forming a barricade against intruders. To others they look like curiosities chosen and kept, a pocket collection that reflects personality as much as strategy. When the tide shifts once more, the creature will explore again, touching the world with deliberate arms, making decisions that feel like improvisation and memory joined together. What then is intelligence in this quiet body of water? It is unscrewing a lid that resists. It is showing one caretaker recognition and another none. It is making choices that differ from a neighbor's, as if temperament had been written into the skin. It is learning after one try and carrying that lesson into the short but vibrant future. It is a network of arms tasting the world while the mantle holds the balance of yes and no. You can rest here, listening to the tide return and recede, the slow pulse that has no end. Imagine your own thoughts as arms, reaching gently into the day's jars, turning what resists and releasing what will not open yet. Each try a little different, each retreat still a kind of progress. Nothing wasted, nothing lost. Somewhere beneath the surface, an octopus dreams of another lid. The twist comes easier this time, the memory intact even in sleep. Perhaps tomorrow, a new object will arrive, and curiosity will meet it without fear. Learning never truly stops, not even in silence, not even in darkness, and perhaps that is what makes intelligence feel less like a tool, and more like a tide, constant, rhythmic, endlessly adjusting. If thought can be spread across many arms, where in us does thinking really begin? The fire is low, only embers now, and the night bends close around a circle of human warmth. At the edge of the glow, a dog waits, eyes wide, ears sharp. A hand rises, points, and the dog follows the gesture before the word is even formed. This is more than obedience, it is social reading, a kind of trust that connects one being's intent to another's movement. Dogs follow human pointing more readily than wolves, as if they were born into the grammar of our bodies. The gesture is enough, the eyes do the rest. Across centuries, this partnership has been tuned like a song passed from voice to voice. A dog watches the rise of a brow, the twitch of a shoulder, the subtle lean toward a path. Its body adjusts before thought has a chance to crystallize, a choreography learned from generations of living beside us. Wolves might notice, but they do not yield. Dogs yield willingly, as if attuned to the small bridges that let intention leap between species. Later, in the dark, a man pauses at the edge of the trail, uncertain which way the deer have gone. His dog stares up at him, eyes shining, unblinking. The gaze holds longer than comfort alone would require. It holds until the man lifts his hand again, and then the dog turns, leading. Eye contact lengthens cooperative persistence, encouraging both partners to stay with the problem until the answer emerges. Where doubt might scatter energy, the gaze gathers it again, steadies it, and carries it forward. In the village, another pair works on a different problem. A child cries out, startled by a sudden noise. The dog barks, but not in the same tone it uses for strangers at the gate. This bark is shorter, higher, urgent but soft, tuned to reassure and summon rather than to warn. Dogs adjust their barks to share urgency and context, a vocabulary woven from pitch and rhythm instead of syllables. The family hears the difference immediately. They come, not afraid but ready. The message has landed. Somewhere else, in a meadow pale under moonlight, a shepherd kneels beside a tired collie. They have been driving sheep since afternoon, and one ewe keeps slipping through the line. The shepherd sighs, lifts a hand, gives a signal. The collie darts, then pauses, adjusting its strategy mid-run. No longer circling as before but cutting the angle tighter. Working breeds can switch tactics when partners struggle, as if sensing frustration and inventing a new answer on behalf of the team. It is not simple training, it is a shared problem, solved together. Between these moments lies a thread of meaning, cooperation that does not rest on command alone. The dog is not a tool, nor the human a master in absolute terms. They are partners, leaning on each other, testing signals until both succeed. In the long history of animals beside us, this bond feels rare, woven of attention, persistence and kindness. It endures because it is flexible, the way breath is flexible, sometimes fast, sometimes slow, but always returning. Now the fire dies further, leaving only heat and the slow pulse of embers. The dog shifts closer, lays its head near the hand that once pointed, and sighs. Trust sleeps beside memory. Tomorrow the pointing will happen again, the gaze will hold again, the bark will adjust, the tactic will change. Intelligence does not always look like solving puzzles in jars or bending wires into hooks. Sometimes it looks like eyes meeting eyes, signals exchanged across silence, and choices that honor the bond more than the outcome. If loyalty itself can teach us how to think together, what other forms of intelligence lie hidden in our need to belong? The meadow wakes slowly with the hum of wings, a sound so soft it feels woven into the grass itself. In the pale morning light, bees rise from their hive in golden threads, tracing paths to blossoms that lean open with dew. Each small body holds a brain the size of a grass seed, yet within that tiny chamber pulses a map of astonishing clarity. Flowers are not just visited at random, they are stitched together into loops, efficient and elegant. Bees learn flower routes, optimizing travel the way we might plan errands across a town. One bee curves wide to the left, another angles sharply to the right, yet both return to the hive with a similar rhythm. Outward, nectar, inward, repeat. Over time, their flights converge into patterns that reduce wasted distance, like water finding the smoothest channel. This routing behavior is not dictated from above, but discovered through repetition, memory and adjustment. From such small wings rises a sense of direction that rivals our own maps, except theirs are drawn not with ink but with the air itself. Inside the hive, a darker chamber waits, buzzing with quiet traffic. Here, choice becomes sharper, reduced to split decisions at branching tunnels. A bee pauses, antennae flicking, and counts. 1, 2, 3 blossoms painted onto memory, then a fourth. Bees have been shown to grasp simple counts, guiding decisions at forks where quantity matters. When faced with an array of blossoms, they can choose the path leading to more, rather than less. Number sense, tucked inside a speck of a brain, echoes our own arithmetic in miniature. Now a returning worker shuffles into the circle of waiting bodies. She quivers, vibrates, and swings her abdomen in measured arcs. The waggle dance begins. Distance is shown by the length of her shaking run, direction by the angle relative to the sun, desirability by the vigor of her tremble. Watching bees lean in, antennae brushing her sides, as if reading with touch instead of eyes. They will fly outward following this coded map, guided by symbols drawn in the dark air of the hive. Waggle dances encode distance, direction, and desirability, a trinity of data collapsed into motion. Yet even within this elegant system lies caution. Sometimes a dancer is mistaken, leading the eager to a flower patch already emptied, or pour in nectar. The recruits test, hover, and hesitate, then decide whether to follow the advice again. Bees can learn from others' incorrect dances, weighing evidence against experience and applying skepticism in the smallest of minds. What seems like blind following is tempered by verification, a kind of critical thinking on wings. They are not merely cogs in instinct's machine, They are small decision makers, navigating a crowded, uncertain world. The meadow breathes with the pulse of this activity. Loops unfold across hillsides, numbers are weighed at forks, and messages are danced in the dark. The hive grows richer because of these choices, each bee a fragment of intelligence, each fragment contributing to a larger design. Their minds are brief, their lives measured in weeks, yet their strategies carry the persistence of centuries. A bee that chooses well today ensures the hive that thrives tomorrow. As sunlight thickens, the air fills with overlapping paths, golden arcs bent by memory. One bee rises high, then corrects, aligning with an angle she has never seen written but always felt. Another hesitates at a fork, recalls the third blossom, and veers to the right. Another returns, trembling her story to the hive, where dances are believed and doubted in equal measure. Through it all, the meadow listens, holding their decisions in the silent patience of grass. To rest among them is to learn a different tempo of thought. Problem-solving here is not heavy or rushed. It is quick, light, continuous, and never lonely. Roots are shared, numbers weighed, dances exchanged, errors corrected. From this emerges not chaos, but a strange order, one that hums itself into the air with every wing beat. And in that hum, intelligence feels less like a ladder and more like a circle. If a mind no larger than a seed can carry maps and numbers, how much of our own intelligence rests on patterns too small to see? The ocean at night is a chamber of resonance. Swells roll in long blue arcs, the stars lean closer, and somewhere deep below a sound begins. It is not a single note but a cascade, rising and falling in phrases that last for minutes, then repeat, then shift again. A humpback whale is singing, his voice stitched from moans and pulses, whistles and clicks. Each year the song changes, a slow evolution carried across an entire ocean. Humpback songs shift yearly like cultural fashions, as if the sea itself were a stage where memory and invention take turns. The melody is not for one ear alone. It spreads through the water, touching listeners miles away, and they echo it back with their own small variations. What was new yesterday becomes tradition tomorrow, then fades as another motif rises. Culture moves on flukes and fins, just as surely as it does in our towns and our music halls. The whale does not know he is a composer, only that his voice joins a chorus larger than himself, and in that joining lies survival, attraction, and belonging. Elsewhere, another whale surfaces with her pod, exhaling a plume that glitters silver in the moonlight. Their calls are shorter, sharper, specific. Each pod carries a dialect, unique arrangements of clicks and pulses passed from generation to generation. Orcas especially preserve these dialects like family names, ensuring that members can recognize kin and allies across distances where sight cannot reach. Pods carry unique call dialects across generations, binding identity into sound. Even when individuals are lost, the dialect remains, carrying their presence forward. Within these pods, knowledge is not abstract, it is lived instruction. An older orca leads the group into a bay where fish swirl in dark schools. She slows her pace, signaling others to form a half circle, and together they drive the fish towards shallows. Calves watch, then imitate, snapping at stragglers, mistiming their charges, and learning with every mistake. Orcas share hunting roles taught through patient practice, each member refining a technique that only makes sense when coordinated with others. Culture here is survival, written in teamwork. In the first hours of life, knowledge is passed even more tenderly. A mother whale holds her newborn calf close, but when danger nears, her voice drops to a whisper. These soft calls, low in volume, are designed to keep predators from hearing while still soothing the baby. Mothers whisper softly to newborn calves while hiding, a form of cautious teaching that mixes love with strategy. Even in the dark ocean, care shapes sound, turning communication into a cradle. Migration arrives like a season remembered in bone. One whale begins, then another, then the whole family moves. No map is printed, yet the timing is precise, inherited through chains of memory. Calves learn the routes by following their mothers, who follow their elders, who followed theirs before. Migration timing spreads through family memory chains, ensuring that paths across thousands of miles remain intact despite the changing sea. Tradition becomes a kind of compass, calibrated not by stars but by ancestry. The songs, the dialects, the whispered reassurances, the inherited paths, all of it weaves a pattern in water where silence might otherwise reign. Whale intelligence reveals itself not in puzzles solved alone, but in cultures carried together, where one generation extends a hand, if whales had hands, to the next. Songs teach fashion, dialects mark belonging, hunting roles guide the group, whispers cradle infants, and migrations carry the family into safe waters again and again. The ocean hums with these layered communications, deep enough to vibrate bone, gentle enough to settle the restless mind. To listen is to drift with them, not to rush, not to demand, only to float in the knowledge that meaning can be vast and slow. A song changes 1 year, a dialect strengthens over decades, a migration persists for centuries. Intelligence here is not a flash but a tide. If voices can carry culture through water and time, what parts of us are carried forward by sound alone? The river is dark, full of silver flickers and unseen voices. In the shallows, a small fish hovers near the side of a larger one, fins trembling as if in hesitation. But then it begins to work, nibbling gently at parasites, smoothing scales with delicate precision. This is no random act. Cleaner wrasse manage their client cues with fairness cues, taking turns, avoiding overbiting, and adjusting behavior when a fish grows restless. If they cheat, if they nip instead of clean, their clients remember, and punishment follows in the form of departure. So the wrasse refine their service, balancing honesty with hunger, shaping trust in an underwater marketplace. Nearby, shoals scatter and regroup, scattering like liquid light when danger passes overhead. When offered a choice, many fish seek larger groups, the safety of numbers flowing like comfort itself. Cichlids in particular show the ability to recognize simple number differences, choosing larger shoals over smaller ones, even when the groups are nearly equal. It is not counting in the human sense, but a sense of more versus less, a survival arithmetic written into instinct and sharpened by choice. For a creature so small, the decision feels weighty: join the crowd or risk the margins. Further upriver, another drama unfolds. A salmon smolt, silver-sided and restless, presses against the current. Every bend of water, every faint mineral taste, every mossy odor is absorbed and stored. Salmon imprint river sense as lifelong navigation maps, embedding the landscape into their bodies before they ever leave it. Years later, fat with ocean distance, they will return. Against storms, predators and exhaustion, they will still find their way home by memory written in molecules. The scent of birthplace becomes a compass no star could replace. In the tropics, a reef lies alive with patterns, and here cooperation takes another shape. A grouper, broad and powerful, hovers near a crevice where prey is hidden. With sudden tilts of its head, it signals to a lurking moray eel. The moray slides in, slender as smoke, and together they corner the quarry. Groupers signal morays for joint cornering hunts, a form of communication where gestures cross species and strategies synchronize. Neither fish could succeed so well alone, but together they make the reef a theater of intelligence, rehearsed nightly. Elsewhere, another fish swims through a maze of stone and shadow. It hesitates, tests one path, then doubles back. Days later, presented with the same labyrinth, it glides through without error, recalling the shortcut as if it had been rehearsed in sleep. Fish can learn maze shortcuts and remember them for weeks, showing persistence and memory where we might expect only instinct. Their choices are not momentary sparks, but durable trails of thought that carry forward. All of this unfolds in silence, save for the soft clicks of jaws and the hush of water around fins. Yet within that quiet live decisions, as complex as any spoken plan, to clean with fairness, to choose the larger shoal, to imprint a home, to signal a partner, to remember a path, these are fragments of a broader picture, proof that thought lives even in the smallest of vertebrates. Watch the rice pause after a restless twitch from its client. It softens its touch, continuing gently, signaling apology through behavior. Watch the cichlid hesitate between two shoals, glance once, and then dart to the larger group, intuition settling on safety. Watch the salmon nose a current, read its signature, and commit to memory the smell of wet stone. Watch the grouper wait for its partner, resisting the urge to strike too soon. Watch the maze solver glide through with confidence, memory burning steady. In each case, the water holds both body and idea, carrying meaning along with current. Fish live in a world we cannot breathe, yet their intelligence breathes within it all the same. Their world is not empty, it is patterned, it is remembered, it is shared. And when night spreads deeper, the river quiets, but those choices remain. Trust built at a wrasse's station, safety secured by a cichlid's arithmetic, a salmon's promise to return home, a grouper's head tilt, waiting for its moray partner, a maze remembered in silence. They remind us that thought is not the property of size, but of need and care. Even the smallest fins carry minds that choose. If memory can be written into scent, what hidden maps guide our own return to places we call home? The laboratory is quiet after hours, red lights casting a faint glow over rows of enclosures. In one of them, a rat paces the edge of a small plastic chamber. Beside it sits another rat, trapped in a clear tube, wriggling faintly. The free rat hesitates, sniffing at the latch, retreating, then returning. After minutes of circling, it presses against the door until it opens. The trapped rat emerges, and the two press together briefly before moving off as if nothing unusual has happened. Rats free trapped peers even without reward, an act that suggests empathy, a concern beyond self-interest. In another maze, a different rat faces a choice. One path leads to a food pellet, but also to a bright light and sudden noise. The other path holds no food but offers safety. Sometimes the rat chooses the pellet, sometimes it skips the trial altogether, avoiding both options. This pause is not random hesitation. Rats weigh uncertain choices, and sometimes choose to opt out, a kind of metacognition, a knowing that they do not know. To doubt then decide, is to acknowledge uncertainty, a small mirror held up to thought itself. Time passes, and the scent of fear lingers in straw. After a mild stress, rats avoid certain corners, marking them as unsafe. But as days pass, the sharpness of that avoidance softens. Scent maps encode safe zones after stress fades, a gradual revision of memory that balances caution with release. The brain rewrites the map, telling the body it is safe again. It is not forgetting but recalibrating, proof that even small creatures adjust their past to keep living in the present. Elsewhere, young rats tumble in play, rolling and pouncing in miniature rehearsals for a life not yet heavy with threat. Amid the rustle of bedding comes a sound inaudible to us without machines, a chirp, high-pitched and quick. These play chirps signal invitation, a way of saying let's continue, in a voice only they can hear. The effect is soothing, binding, reassuring. Where we might use laughter, rats use these hidden songs to keep joy alive, to remind one another that the roughhousing is safe, not harm. Later, when play and foraging are done, and the rats curl in a heap of warmth, their brains remain busy. In sleep and quiet rest, neural patterns replay the paths of earlier explorations. The maze is walked again in silence, choices rehearsed, shortcuts solidified. Rats replay path memories during quiet rest periods, strengthening the roots for future trials. What looks like stillness is actually rehearsal, thought folded back onto itself to prepare for tomorrow. Sleep becomes not only rest, but a classroom. Across these moments, the rescue of a peer, the weighing of uncertainty, the rewriting of fear, the hidden laughter of play, the rehearsal of paths, rats reveal minds that are not mechanical but responsive, layered and alive. Intelligence here is not loud. It is carried in small acts, repeated with patience. To free another, to hesitate wisely, to revise memory, to laugh softly, to rehearse silently. These are not grand gestures, but together they form a pattern of care and competence. When the room grows still, you can almost hear the faint scurries as decisions echo. The free rat that once opened the door may sleep with the memory of compassion resting in its body. The uncertain one may dream of the fork in the maze, rehearsing how to choose better next time. The fearful one may wake calmer, its scent map redrawn. The playful one may invite a friend again with another hidden chirp, and the resting one, silent, may carry tomorrow's shortcut in its sleep. If even a rat can doubt comfort and replay its days, how much of our own thought is simply the rehearsal of kindness? The night spreads across the valley, cool air pooling in hollows, while distant voices thread through the dark. A wolf lifts her head, and a howl arcs upward, long and unwavering. Seconds later, others answer, layered notes, some sharp, some low, all converging into a chorus that rolls across ridges. This is not noise, it is a map, a gathering, a signal of presence and intent. Within the chorus, each voice can be distinguished, allowing members to know who is near and who lingers far. The sound strengthens bonds, coordinates movement, and holds the family together even when distance presses between them. Later, silence returns, and the pack regroups near the edge of the forest. They circle, brushing shoulders, tails high, breaths fogging faintly. The hunt is about to begin. Strategy matters now. Two wolves slip left into shadow, another moves ahead as a flanker, and the lead pair angles toward the meadow where elk graze under moonlight. Wolves cooperate in hunts through shifting positions, adjusting mid-chase if prey turns or doubles back. No leader barks orders. Coordination flows from experience, from the ability to read a partner's pace, from shared practice etched into the body. It is learning passed down in running steps. A coyote, leaner and more solitary, moves in the same night but with a different rhythm. Alone it tests burrows, listening for faint rustles beneath soil. But coyotes are not always solitary. In some regions they form pairs or small groups, using different calls to summon others. Pairs teach pups how to stalk in tandem, one flushing while the other waits. Coyotes vary their strategies depending on group size, flexible in ways that wolves are less inclined to be. Adaptation is their currency, and intelligence here means revising methods quickly. Back in the wolf pack, a yearling follows the older hunters at a cautious distance. She watches as they fan out, learns where to position herself, when to pause, when to dash. Once she lunges too soon, scattering the herd and ending the chase. The adults turn briefly, eyes flashing, then continue without punishing her. Learning hunts by watching experienced members is essential, and mistakes are folded into education, not shame. Over time, the yearling will master timing, not by lecture, but by repeated trials within the safety of family. Coyotes too pass skills through observation. In fields near farms, pups learn to test fences, digging where the soil is softer, following the routes their parents reveal. They also learn to listen for danger, ears swiveling toward the distant hum of trucks. Humans try to block, chase, or trap, yet coyotes remain. They teach resilience in landscapes altered by others, rewriting lessons as environments change. Adaptation itself becomes tradition, taught with the same care as stalking or digging. In both wolves and coyotes, intelligence reveals itself not only in the chase but in the adjustment. A wolf pack circling an elk may shift tactics mid-pursuit, pressing harder on the weaker flank, abandoning the stronger side. A coyote pair may abandon a rabbit chase to test the chicken coop instead, changing strategy as quickly as the wind. Neither follows a rigid script. Instead, each weighs opportunity, cost, and risk, teaching the young that success means bending with circumstance. The night grows deeper. The hunt pauses. The wolves return to their resting place, gathering close, grooming one another with small nips and licks. These moments are quieter lessons: patience, bonding, the rhythm of waiting. Young wolves learn that family is not only about hunting together, but also resting together, sharing warmth and soothing stress. Cooperation without affection is brittle. Cooperation with care is resilient. Coyotes call from the next ridge, their voices higher, more staccato, rising in bursts like laughter. Pups mimic the cadence, sometimes poorly, sometimes well, and parents answer, shaping the practice. Calls are not just signals, but also rehearsals of identity. A family's sound becomes as distinctive as its strategy, a vocal signature that pups learn by ear. Culture spreads not just through action, but through sound. Dawn creeps slowly, painting the valley with a pale wash of silver. Wolves stir, stretching, nudging one another awake. The yearling lifts her head, ears forward, ready for another day of lessons. She has not mastered timing yet, but she knows she will, because the pack allows her to keep trying. In a nearby field, coyote pups doze, dreaming of the routes they will soon explore, the calls they will soon practice, the strategies they will soon revise. Intelligence here is not a solitary spark, but a thread woven between members. Wolves carry it in shared hunts, coyotes in adaptive strategies. Both pass it down through practice, tolerance, and repetition, creating families that think together. To watch them is to see thought in motion, not bound to a single mind, but stretched across a chorus, a chase, a lesson, a call. If survival can be taught without words, what else in us is carried silently from one generation to the next? The alley is quiet, save for the soft rasp of paws on stone. A cat pauses beneath a flickering light, her body low, her tail still, her eyes reflecting in green coins. She is not rushing, she is weighing. The night is full of movements, a moth above the lamppost, a rat rustling near a bin, the distant echo of a dog's bark, but she selects what matters. Silent learning is her strength. Cats stalk in near silence, adjusting their gait by watching, not by asking, the environment teaching them through observation of consequence. A single misstep teaches more than noise ever could. She creeps forward, pausing before the leap. Every muscle tenses, then relaxes slightly, waiting for the right angle. Cats do not pounce blindly. They calculate distance and trajectory with the care of an architect. A jump too soon wastes energy. A jump too late means the prey is gone. When they leap, it is with mathematics written into tendon and whisker, a geometry of survival. In that moment, precision is everything. Missed attempts are not failures, but lessons recalculated, stored in silence for the next chase. Later she settles on a windowsill, tail curled like a question mark. Her ears swivel toward a faint rattle inside the house. Human voices rise and fall. She listens, not for meaning in words, but for patterns, tone, pitch, rhythm. Cats recognize familiar voices and respond differently to them, showing subtle shifts in body and gaze. They know the difference between belonging and stranger, between calm and anger, simply by sound. The recognition is quiet, understated, but it guides their choices, telling them when to approach and when to remain still. On another night, a tomcat wanders into a new alley where territory lines blur. He freezes at the scent, whiskers forward, ears flattened slightly. He does not charge or flee. Instead he waits, listening for movement, gauging whether the unseen rival is near. Cats can judge risk from absence as much as presence, reading silence itself as information. Choosing when not to fight is as important as knowing how to strike. In restraint, intelligence reveals itself, wrapped in caution's cloak. At dawn, kittens tumble in a courtyard, their play a mirror of futures not yet lived. One stalks, one flees, then they switch, trading roles with bursts of speed and sudden stillness. Through this they learn. Play refines balance, stealth and timing, embedding skills without the weight of hunger. But it is not chaos. Older cats intervene if play grows too rough, pausing the lesson so that care stays intact. From kittenhood, decisions are rehearsed in games, mistakes absorbed gently into growing muscle memory. Cats are often framed as solitary, but their intelligence thrives in social nuance. They greet one another with brief touches of noses, share space without conflict through careful spacing, and exchange subtle tail signals that say more than sound could. These signals, though easy to miss, structure their world. Even their apparent aloofness is a strategy, conserving energy, observing before acting, choosing carefully whom to trust. To misread them as indifferent is to miss the quiet intelligence in patience. As evening returns, the cat curls again on the windowsill, eyes half closed, ears still alert. She has learned enough today. Which paths are safe, which leaps succeed, which voices comfort, which silence is worn. None of it was taught with words, yet all of it is stored, waiting for the next decision. Intelligence here is not in grand gestures, but in the layering of choices, the stacking of lessons collected in shadows. If wisdom can grow from silence and watching, how much of our own learning happens before we ever speak? The reef is hushed at twilight, shadows thickening between coral towers. Out of the rocks slides a cuttlefish, skin already stirring with a storm of colors. One moment it is banded like a zebra, the next it melts into sand. Cephalopods live in bodies that double as canvases, shifting patterns in less than a second. They do not only hide, they communicate, blending into background when silence is needed, and bursting into signals when attention is required. Camouflage here is not passive, it is perception sharpened into art. A nearby crab scuttles, the cuttlefish freezes, and its skin becomes the seabed, dappled beige in shadow. But this disguise is not just vision. Its skin contains light-sensitive cells called chromatophores, controlled both by eyes and by nerves in the skin itself. The body is a distributed map of perception, where the surface sees almost as much as the eyes do. Cephalopods can match textures and colors even when one eye is obscured, suggesting that the body itself carries part of the mind. Further off, an octopus emerges, pressing against coral. Its skin rises into bumps, mimicking rough rock. Then, with a single pulse, the bumps flatten, and the octopus flows across open sand, pale and smooth as drift. Each adjustment is made by reading context in real time, altering body maps so fully that predator and prey are both deceived. This is not simply reflex, it is choice. Cephalopods shift patterns not only for hiding, but also for signaling readiness, warning rivals, or attracting mates. In shallow water, a squid hovers with its school. Unlike the solitary octopus, squids coordinate patterns. When one flashes stripes, another answers with spots. These signals ripple through the group like sentences, allowing coordination of movement and mood. Collective camouflage is not just blending with background, but blending with each other. The school becomes a single organism, flickering like a living constellation. Their intelligence resides not only in what they choose to mimic, but in how they synchronize, turning individuality into chorus. Back at the reef, the cuttlefish approaches a rival. Its skin ignites into zebra stripes on one side, while the other side remains pale and soft. This split pattern is a double message threat to the rival, calm to the female nearby. Cephalopods can broadcast two signals at once, using one half of their body for one audience and the other half for another. It is the equivalent of whispering and shouting simultaneously, a complexity of communication few other creatures manage. The reef darkens further, shadows curling longer. Cephalopods vanish into caves, but their patterns linger in memory. Camouflage is not just survival, it is cognition displayed on skin. To be able to decide, to alter, to mislead, to reveal, these are acts of intelligence written not on paper or spoken in air, but shown in light and color, muscle and skin. If a body itself can think in colors and patterns, how much of our own mind lies outside the brain we trust? Beneath our feet, in the quiet soil, a million small movements are unfolding at once. Ants flow like dark rivers through tunnels, carrying fragments of leaves, grains of sand, or the bodies of their dead. Termites move more slowly, sculpting walls from chewed wood and soil, building chambers that breathe with air. To watch them closely is to realize that what seems chaotic is in fact ordered, directed not by a single leader, but by countless signals exchanged through touch, scent, and vibration. Here, intelligence is not housed in one mind, but distributed across thousands, woven into the colony itself. An ant pauses at a junction underground. She brushes antennae against another ant, then chooses left instead of right. The decision looks simple, but it is influenced by chemical trails laid earlier. Ants solve foraging routes by leaving pheromone trails, which strengthen as more individuals follow them. A weak trail fades. A strong trail becomes a highway. Without planning, they discover efficiency, finding the shortest path between nest and food. It is a living algorithm, a computation made from bodies. Far away in tropical forests, termites are at work on another masterpiece. Their mounds rise taller than humans, ridged like cathedral spires, each chamber tuned to channel air. As temperatures shift, the mound breathes, drawing cool drafts in and pushing warm drafts out. Termite mounds self-regulate temperature with architectural precision, the colony building structures that act like lungs. No architect draws the plans. The collective, through simple cues, builds complexity that lasts for decades. Intelligence takes the form of stone-hard soil, shaped into shelter for millions. On the surface, a line of ants approaches a fallen beetle. The prize is heavy, too heavy for one, but together they surround it, each tugging in slight disagreement with the others until, almost suddenly, they align. The beetle lifts, wobbling, carried toward the nest. Group transport requires negotiation, a subtle alignment of forces that allows the group to act as one. The colony thinks with many legs, solving problems that no individual could manage alone. Deep within their tunnels, termites perform another quiet task. They groom one another constantly, not only cleaning but spreading symbiotic microbes that help digest tough plant matter. Knowledge here is not abstract, but biological, passed mouth to mouth, antenna to antenna. Termites maintain digestion with microbial exchanges, ensuring that the colony survives together or fails together. It is cooperation written into the chemistry of bodies, a reminder that intelligence can also mean sustaining the invisible networks that feed life. The day passes and the colony continues without pause. No ant knows the whole map of the tunnels, yet food arrives. No termite directs the mound's construction, yet air circulates. What looks like instinct alone reveals itself, on closer inspection, as a system of decisions, tiny, local, imperfect, yet converging toward resilience. The collective mind is fragile if broken apart, but immense when held together. At dusk, the surface quiets, trails fade, mound entrances narrow, and the air above grows still. But beneath, the colony hums with purpose, a heartbeat of many beating as one. To sit above them is to sense the strangeness of scale, so many tiny minds, creating something larger than any of them could see. If thousands of small choices can merge into intelligence greater than the sum, how much of our own thinking is shaped by the hidden collectives we belong to? The desert lies still under the weight of afternoon heat. A lizard perches on a rock, unmoving, eyes half closed yet not asleep. Its stillness is not emptiness but patience, a strategy honed over millennia. Reptiles wait with precision, conserving energy, watching and measuring time with bodies attuned to warmth and shadow. What may look like idleness is a form of thinking, planning without rushing. Their survival depends on knowing when to remain still and when to strike, decisions carved into silence. From the sand's edge, a tortoise begins its slow crossing. Its gait is deliberate, step after step, always toward the same shaded burrow. The journey is not random. Reptiles remember landmarks and routes across their ranges, returning faithfully to shelters and waterholes. Place memory in tortoises and lizards, anchors them to the geography of survival. Without written maps, their bodies carry the landscape, etched into neurons, rehearsed through repetition. A tortoise's plodding steps are less about slowness and more about certainty, knowing exactly where safety lies. At the edge of a river, a crocodile hovers just beneath the surface. Minutes pass, then hours, with barely a ripple. Nearby, a herd of antelope gathers, drinking without noticing. When the crocodile lunges, it is not reckless hunger, but timing perfected by patience. Crocodiles wait for prey with hours of still planning, embodying restraint in pursuit. They choose moments that maximize success and minimize waste. It is intelligence in its simplest form, the power to wait until the world aligns. In rocky crevices, iguanas test pathways down cliffs. Young ones hesitate, watching elders before choosing their descent. Through trial and imitation, they learn which routes lead safely to feeding grounds and which end in danger. Reptiles can learn by observing, using patience to absorb lessons without direct risk. It is not teaching as mammals do, but it is learning nonetheless, carried quietly through observation and repetition. Each descent becomes a study in caution, memory and planning. Far from cliffs and rivers, in a forest clearing, a turtle emerges at dusk to lay her eggs. She chooses the same patch of earth her kind has used for generations, guided by a sense of place passed down across centuries. Memory here is not only individual, but inherited in instincts refined through time. When she covers the eggs and withdraws, the site will remain marked within her body, a point to which she may return. Reptiles carry ancestral maps written not on paper, but into bone and blood. The sun lowers, shadows lengthen, and reptiles continue their quiet rehearsals of patience and memory. A lizard unmoving on a rock, a tortoise marching steadily home, a crocodile suspended in waiting, an iguana choosing the right path, a turtle guided by ancestral maps, all reveal intelligence that does not shout. It whispers through restraint, through persistence, through memory that lingers beyond the moment. To us, their pace may seem slow, their choice is simple, yet beneath each pause lies calculation, beneath each wait lies strategy, beneath each step lies knowledge of place. They do not hurry, and in not hurrying, they survive. If patience itself can be a kind of wisdom, how much do we overlook in our own restless rush to act? Night falls deeper, the air cooling as insects rise in swarms above the tree line. A flutter stirs, sharp and precise, wings cutting through darkness without sound. A bat launches, its small body vanishing into the black. It does not see the way we do. Instead, the world unfolds in echoes, tiny cries too high for us to hear, rebounding off leaves, branches and wings. Each return signal paints a picture, not of colors but of distances and textures. Bats shape space through echoes, reading detail finer than the sharpest eye could catch. One swoop, and the bat corrects its path mid-air. The insect it chases veers left, but the echo maps it instantly, and the bat follows without hesitation. Its calls adjust as it nears the target, shifting from wide pulses to rapid clicks. These terminal buzzes guide its final approach, timing its snap with a precision clocked in milliseconds. To move through night at such speed, guided only by sound, is to trust a different kind of intelligence, a mind attuned not to sight, but to the hidden architecture of sound waves. Yet bats are not only solitary hunters. In caves where thousands roost together, calls mingle and overlap, forming a crowded chorus. Somehow, each bat discerns its own signals amid the din. They alter pitch, timing and frequency to avoid confusion, reshaping calls like musicians tuning to avoid discord. Bats adjust echolocation calls to reduce overlap, a kind of acoustic etiquette that allows order in chaos. This is not mere instinct, but social calibration, a respect for shared space made audible. Inside the roost, another layer of intelligence hums. Mothers identify pups among thousands by their individual calls. Each pup has a voice distinct enough to be recognized, and each mother carries that memory, navigating walls of sound to locate her young. Recognition here is intimate, a bond between two voices carved into noise. The cave may roar with echoes, but meaning cuts through, stitching mother and child together again and again. Beyond the family bond lies the fabric of society. Vampire bats, often maligned, reveal this most clearly. They feed by night, but sometimes a hunt fails. When one bat returns hungry, another that fed well may regurgitate blood to share. These donations are not random acts. Bats remember past generosity, favoring those who have helped them before. Reciprocal aid builds trust, binding the colony into networks of fairness. Vampire bats maintain fairness through reciprocal aid, remembering who gave and who withheld. Survival here depends on social contracts as much as on skill. In the wild, bats also show cooperation beyond kin. Some hunting groups, signaling the presence of prey with subtle calls, coordinating their movements to flush insects toward one another. Others share roosts with unrelated bats, tolerating strangers for the stability it brings. Rules of night society emerge, rules about sharing, about fairness, about recognition, that mirror the foundations of larger minds. The night wears on, full of clicks, buzzes, and whispers beyond our hearing. Each bat threads its own story into the air, guided by echoes, shaped by etiquette, grounded in memory and fairness. Intelligence here is not a single trick of sound, but a whole way of life. It is the power to see with ears, to recognize one voice among thousands, to balance generosity with need, to live together in darkness without losing one another. If sound alone can build maps, families, and societies, what unseen signals shape the bonds we trust in our own lives? The prairie is wide and wind-brushed, grass is bending in slow waves. A flick of movement breaks the rhythm, upright shapes at the edges of burrows. Prairie dogs, scattered like sentinels, lift their heads. One emits a sharp call, high and brief, and the colony reacts. Some dart underground, others freeze, eyes turn skyward. The alarm is not vague, it carries detail. Research has shown that prairie dogs tailor alarm calls to describe predators. A coyote approaching triggers one pattern, a hawk another, and even the shape or color of a human can alter the call. Alarm calls encode predator type and features, a vocabulary hidden in chirps that ripple through the grass. Nearby, meerkats stand in a loose ring around their burrow, younger pups darting between their legs. A shadow passes overhead, and one adult cries out. Instantly the group shifts. Some look up, others dive, while one adult pushes the pups down into the burrow entrance. Here too, alarms are more than warnings. They vary in urgency, telling others whether to flee immediately or simply stay alert. Meerkats modulate alarm urgency with context, shaping collective response with precision. Each call is a decision, carrying not only sound but meaning about time and risk. When danger fades, another kind of lesson begins. Young meerkats beg for food, chirping insistently. Adults bring back prey, often scorpions. But the prey is not always whole. At first, pups receive dead scorpions, safe to practice on. Later, they are given scorpions with stingers removed, then live ones with guidance nearby. Adults scaffold pup learning by presenting prey in stages, teaching hunting safely through graduated exposure. This is teaching in its clearest form, risk managed, skill transferred, knowledge passed through structured practice. Prairie dogs also educate, though differently. Pups follow elders as they emerge from burrows, watching where to dig, when to forage, and how to respond to calls. They learn alarm codes by imitation, refining their responses to subtle variations. In their crowded towns, where survival depends on early warning, this learning is constant. Through repetition, pups become fluent in the acoustic code of the colony, inheriting a shared language not from instinct alone, but from practice with others. Even in moments of calm, intelligence shines. Meerkats post sentinels, one individual climbing to a high vantage point, while others feed. The sentinel scans, alert, while the rest lower their guard. When danger comes, the sentinel warns, often at personal risk. Sentinel duty rotates, a system of fairness that keeps the group protected without exhausting any single member. Cooperation here is intelligence shared, the group surviving because responsibility is distributed. As dusk falls, prairie dogs slip back into their burrows, and meerkats gather in a warm huddle, eyes soft, calls quiet. The lessons of the day, alarms practiced, pups guided, dangers faced. linger in their bodies ready for tomorrow. To watch them is to witness communication dense with meaning, teaching rich with structure, and cooperation balanced with care. If warnings can carry such detail, and teaching can be built into survival itself, how much of what we pass on to one another is simply a way of saying, "Be ready, I am with you." The city hums with its own pulse. Cars, lights, voices rising and fading through streets that never quite sleep. Yet within this human-made world, other minds are at work, adapting to the concrete rhythm. On a rooftop, a pigeon circles before settling, its wings folding into stillness. It remembers this place. Pigeons carry maps of cities in their minds, able to navigate back to lofts from miles away, guided by magnetic cues and landmarks. Their intelligence rests not only in flight but in memory, the ability to recall the shape of towers, the smell of air, the tilt of streets below. Even amid glass and stone, they find their way home. Down in the alleys, raccoons patrol the edges of dumpsters. Their paws, nimble and clever, work lids and latches as though designed for problem solving. Studies have shown raccoons can remember solutions to puzzles for years, revisiting tactics with accuracy. Raccoons solve urban puzzles with long memory, an adaptation that makes them masters of scavenging. The city becomes their labyrinth, but one they walk with confidence, treating each obstacle as a problem waiting to be cracked. Foxes slip between parked cars at dusk, pausing to listen for the scrape of mice beneath metal. They do not merely hunt, they learn which neighborhoods yield food, which gardens offer shelter, which hours bring quiet. Foxes adjust strategies to human patterns, shifting their hunts to avoid the loudest hours, entering when the city softens. Their adaptability is not just instinct, but a kind of reading of human behavior, intelligence bent toward coexistence. High above, crows perch on power lines, watching with eyes that gleam. One drops a nut onto a crosswalk. A car passes, cracks the shell, and when the light turns red, the crow swoops down to eat safely. This is more than habit. Crows use traffic to crack nuts safely, timing their actions to signals we ourselves have invented. They have folded our rules into their survival, treating traffic lights as part of their own intelligence. The city becomes a tool, and they wield it with grace. Beneath a bridge, bats flutter in and out of crevices. At first the city seemed hostile, too bright, too loud, but over generations bats shifted. They now hunt insects drawn to streetlights, circling lamps as if they were moon and stars. Urban bats use artificial light to forage, adapting ancient skills to modern skies. Where darkness once ruled, they find opportunity in glow. Together, these creatures weave a new ecosystem, not natural in the old sense, but alive with decisions, adjustments, and cleverness. Pigeons map landmarks, raccoons remember puzzles, foxes read our patterns, crows master our signals, bats bend light into hunting ground. Intelligence here is not only surviving despite us, but surviving with us, reshaping minds to fit into the cracks of our constructions. As night deepens, the city seems less ours alone. Every rooftop, alley, garden, and bridge carries hidden stories of problem-solving and persistence. These animals live in spaces we thought we controlled, yet their choices remind us that the city is shared, its rhythm a dialogue rather than a monologue. If other species can learn our signals and fold them into survival, how much of our own intelligence depends on learning from worlds we did not design? Darkness deepens, and the rhythm of the living world slows. Some animals curl into burrows, some perch in branches, others float in open seas, letting the currents rock them. Sleep, though vulnerable, arrives in nearly every corner of life. Even creatures without eyelids surrender to cycles of stillness, their bodies slipping into patterns of rest and renewal. In this silence, the mind does not switch off. It drifts, replays, imagines. Dreams are stitched quietly into the fabric of survival. In forests, birds perch on thin branches, gripping tightly with tendons that lock in place even as they sleep, their heads tucked beneath wings, yet part of their brain remains awake. Many birds sleep with one hemisphere alert, watching for predators, while the other hemisphere rests. Unihemispheric sleep allows vigilance and renewal at once, a balancing act of safety and rest. It is intelligence expressed not in thought but in rhythm, a way of guarding the body without abandoning the mind. In oceans, dolphins and whales also practice this divided rest. One half of the brain sleeps while the other stays active, surfacing for air, steering through currents. Mothers with newborn calves often forego deep sleep entirely in the first weeks, staying awake for days, guarding fragile life until the calf is strong enough to join in the rhythm. Sleep is adjusted to circumstance, reshaped to protect. For animals of the sea, dreams must wait until safety allows them to close both eyes. On land, elephants lean against trees or fold into the earth, sleeping in short bursts. Their dreams are brief but vivid. Studies suggest elephants experience REM sleep, the stage where dreams form, but only for minutes at a time, sometimes going days without it. Yet when REM arrives, it carries images strong enough to stir them, suggesting that memory and imagination weave through their rest. Sleep here is not abundant but efficient, preserving strength while carrying flickers of inner life. Rats in labs reveal another secret. After running mazes, they later replay the same patterns during sleep, their brains firing as though retracing steps. This replay consolidates memory, moving it from fleeting activity into lasting knowledge. Dreams here are not random but structured rehearsals, the mind practicing what the body once performed. Sleep strengthens memory, turning experience into foundation. What we dream may be more than imagination, it may be the mind quietly teaching itself. In the insect world, bees show pauses that resemble rest. They grow less responsive, bodies stilled, antennae drooping. After a day of foraging, bees that rest consolidate the memory of flower locations. Without sleep, their dances falter, and the colony loses efficiency. Even the smallest brains benefit from sleep, their tiny circuits needing stillness to maintain clarity. Dreams, or something close to them, may flicker here too, in the hum of antennae twitching. In wild forests, cats twitch in slumber, paws moving as though chasing unseen prey. Their dreams mirror their waking hunts. Dogs do the same, paws running in place, whimpers soft against the air. Dreams extend practice, weaving possibilities into rehearsal. Perhaps dreams allow animals to live twice, once in action, once in rehearsal, doubling the mind's chances of learning. And yet sleep is not equal across species. Giraffes sleep only minutes at a time, vulnerable in the open, their vast bodies awkward to fold. Sharks keep swimming, some never fully stopping. Still, rest finds a way in nearly every form of life, from flies to whales, turtles to humans. Sleep is universal, a thread tying together creatures that share little else. Dreams may remain mysteries, but they whisper of intelligence that does not end when eyes close. They suggest that inner life extends beyond waking, that memory and imagination are not luxuries but tools survival insists upon. If even in sleep our minds rehearse, replay, and imagine, is there ever a moment when thought truly stops? Across meadows, seas, and skies, life hums with messages. Some are loud and layered, like whale songs that ripple through water for miles. Others are small, almost invisible, the flick of an ear, the tremor of a tail. Communication in animals stretches far beyond simple cries. It carries detail, nuance, even structure that resembles syntax. These codes are not random. They are living languages, each adapted to circumstance, each shaping the survival of those who speak them. In the grasslands, vervet monkeys call with precision. One cry means eagle, another leopard, another snake. Each alarm triggers a different response. Heads tilt upward to scan the sky, bodies dash to trees, or feet stomp the ground to flush hidden danger. This is not a single sound for fear, but a coded system. Vervet monkeys use distinct calls for predator types, a lexicon of alarms that guide survival. Even the young must learn these calls, refining their accuracy with practice. Vocabulary is not born perfect, it is shaped in the ears of the colony. Underwater, humpback whales weave songs that change with time. Their long repeating phrases carry themes and variations, like music unfolding over hours. Entire populations may shift to a new version of the song in a single season, passing cultural innovations through sound. Whale songs carry cultural change, suggesting a shared syntax evolving across oceans. These songs are not random but patterned, structured and learned, with rules that echo the way our own speech adapts across generations. In the insect world, bees dance on combs, tracing circles or wagging paths. The angle of the waggle points to the sun's position, the tempo conveys distance, the vigor signals richness of nectar. This dance is a coded map, a syntax of movement, telling others where to fly. Bees share knowledge spatially, transforming body motion into language. Here communication is not only about emotion, but about information, geometry translated into movement. Closer to home, songbirds repeat notes in sequences, combining chirps and whistles into complex arrangements. Some species even follow rules about order, repeating certain notes only after others, much like grammar. Songbirds demonstrate syntax-like rules, blending flexibility with structure. Their songs are not only declarations of territory or courtship, but also rehearsals of pattern and memory. Each tune is a learned code, refined by listening, imitation, and creativity. Communication codes extend to gestures as well. Chimpanzees raise arms, stomp or touch gently to request food, warn of threats or initiate play. Some signals are shared across groups, others unique to a community. Gestural repertoires function like vocabularies, shaped by context and culture. Even silence can be a code. The decision not to signal, not to call, not to move, can be just as meaningful as any word. As the day softens into night, these codes persist in every corner, from vervid alarms to whale songs, bee dances to bird syntax, chimp gestures to silent signals. Communication emerges as more than reaction. It is structured, layered, and often cultural. Meaning is carried not only in sound but in sequence, not only in gesture but in timing. If language can arise in feathers, fins, wings, and whispers, how many other forms of meaning surround us that we have yet to learn to hear? The surface of water ripples gently, a mirror in motion. A dolphin glides near, pauses, and gazes at its own reflection. It twists, rolls, angles its body, watching the image shift. This is not confusion, it is recognition. Dolphins, like great apes, elephants, and magpies, pass the mirror test. They notice marks placed on their bodies and use the reflection to inspect themselves. To recognize the self in a reflection is to cross a threshold, to understand not just the existence of others, but the existence of one's own being. Mirrors whisper back a strange truth: I am here, and I am me. Nearby, an elephant approaches a mirror in a sanctuary. She touches her forehead where a painted mark rests, her trunk deliberate. Elephants not only see their bodies but seem to acknowledge that the image is not another animal. They show signs of self-awareness, pausing, examining, exploring. To stand before a mirror is to confront identity, and these animals step across that invisible boundary with quiet grace. Magpies, too, engage with mirrors. Unlike many birds that react aggressively to reflections, magpies may use them to preen marked feathers, suggesting awareness of self-image. That a bird so different from mammals can pass the test hints at convergent evolution, that intelligence takes many routes to similar thresholds. Recognition of self is not bound to lineage. It arises where minds grow deep enough to wonder. Beyond mirrors lies another frontier: time. Apes, corvids, and scrubjays have all shown the ability to plan for futures not yet lived. Scrubjays bury food in caches, recalling not only where they hid it but when, preferring fresher stores when retrieving later. This requires memory of the past and projection into the future, a mental timeline that reaches both directions. To think of tomorrow while standing in today is to hold time itself in the mind. Great apes, when offered tools for tomorrow's tasks, can save them for future use. They resist immediate rewards in favor of delayed success. Planning stretches thought across hours, even days. It is not survival in the present, but investment in the future, a quiet trust in continuity. Ravens too have been observed trading tokens for future food, holding restraint until the exchange becomes possible. These choices suggest that time is not a blur, but a landscape they can walk through, forward and back. And then beyond time and mirrors lies the question of the self. Octopuses, with their shifting bodies and semi-autonomous arms, challenge our idea of individuality. Each arm can act independently, exploring and tasting, yet remains part of a single being. Where does the self begin and end in such a body? Likewise, ants and termites dissolve individuality into colonies, minds stretched across thousands. Is the colony the self, or each ant? Identity blurs at the edges, reminding us that what we call the self may be more fluid than we imagine. The night deepens, and across the world animals move in silence and song, dream and memory, choice and reflection. Intelligence is not a ladder but a river, branching and curving, carrying awareness in many directions. In dolphins gazing into mirrors, in scrubjays caching for the future, in ants building cathedrals of soil, in elephants touching painted skin, we glimpse minds at the edge, minds that bend our categories, that unsettle our certainty of where awareness begins. The journey draws to a close. We've drifted across oceans, forests, caves, and cities, listening to animals think in ways both familiar and strange. We've seen dolphins naming each other, elephants mourning, bees dancing, wolves teaching, crows planning, octopuses solving, and even ants turning soil into intelligence. 100 quiet facts, layered together, remind us that minds are not rare lights, but common fires, glowing in countless forms. At the beginning, I asked a question: if thought can appear in so many shapes, what does it really mean to be aware? Perhaps the answer is not one thing. Perhaps awareness is a spectrum, stretching from silence to song, from instinct to culture, from patience to planning. Perhaps it is not only inside individuals, but stretched across families, colonies, even entire ecosystems. And perhaps what we call intelligence is simply the endless practice of connection, a way of noticing, a way of adapting, a way of remembering that we belong to something larger. You don't need to hold on to all the details now. Let them fade like ripples in water. Just rest in the quiet recognition that the world is full of other ways of knowing, and that you too are part of this great chorus of minds. As your eyes grow heavier, let the last question linger softly. If every being carries its own form of awareness, how might you wake tomorrow a little wiser, a little gentler, in the company of all these other lives? Breathe slowly. The night holds you. The earth is alive with thought, and you are safe to let go, to sleep, to dream.